You think you know what death is. You believe in heroic epitaphs and quiet departures when everything falls silent and the world bows its head in mourning. But in medieval reality, your death is neither a tragedy nor a triumph. It is a prolonged torment turned into a daily ritual and a collective fear. You are John of Gaunt, a duke, a king's son, a lord of lands and people, but neither wealth nor status will save you from what slowly and mercilessly eats away at your body and soul. But before you get comfortable, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you are watching from and what time it is where you are. I'm really curious to see who's joined us. Now, get comfortable. We're beginning. You are born in the year 1340, a year so thick with dread that the very air seems damp with it. The world you enter is neither welcoming nor particularly sanitary. Your first cries echo through stone corridors and echoing chambers, rattling tapestries and the ancient bones of the castle. You are John of Gaunt, third surviving son of the king, and your future is as unpredictable as the rats that scurry behind the wainscoting. Of course, you do not yet know about rats. You do not know about fleas, nor the invisible and vengeful things that swim in water and crawl on bread. You are swaddled in silks, a squalling, red-faced infant, handed from wet nurse to nursemaid, from nursemaid to mother, from mother to a world already preparing to let you down. 1340 is not, strictly speaking, a good year for children. In the cities, people count births and deaths with the same exhausted pen. For every one child who survives, there are perhaps three who do not. Disease is the great lottery. The Black Death is already brewing in the east, packing its bags and stretching its wings. Famine is not far behind, and the winter, always the winter, gnaws at the bones of peasants and princes alike. Still, you are fortunate, or so your family claims. You are a Lancaster, born with a name heavy as iron. Your father is King Edward III, who spends his time worrying about France, Scotland, and the perpetual emptiness of the royal treasury. Your mother, Queen Philippa, is of good stock, clever and kind, but even she knows that a child is a fragile thing. She looks at you as one might look at an elaborate glass goblet, half expecting you to shatter at any moment. Your nursery is a curious mix of comfort and peril. The cushions are stuffed with feathers, but the feathers may have come from birds with lice. The wooden cradle is carved with saints and angels, their painted faces peeling. Outside your windows, the castle moat stinks in summer and freezes solid in winter. The water is never clean, though it sparkles in the morning light. The servants, loyal and nervous, are as likely to bring illness as they are to bring supper. No one in the nursery talks of germs. There is no such word. Sickness is the will of God, or the mischief of sprites, or perhaps the result of too much bad air. When one of your infant companions dies, quietly, wrapped in a blanket, their face as pale as the full moon, there are prayers and tears, and then a quick, quiet burial. Life must go on, and so must death. As you grow, your world expands, but only slightly. You learn that some people bow when you enter the room, that certain foods are reserved for you, that some rooms are always cold, no matter how many logs the servants pile on the fire. You learn to fear drafts, to distrust strangers, and to listen for the soft coughs and sneezes that precede a fever. The castle is large, but there are not so many safe corners as you might hope. Your father, King Edward, visits you occasionally, a stern man with tired eyes and heavy boots. He smells of leather, sweat, and horse. He does not smile often. Your mother is gentler, holding your hand and singing songs in a language you do not quite understand. She worries about you, but she also worries about your siblings, your father, the crops, and the next war. Time passes. You learn to walk, to talk, to recite your prayers. You learn that there are rooms you must never enter and stories you must never repeat. You do not yet know that your own story will end not with a bang, but with a slow, grinding whimper. You do not know that in 60 long, aching years, you will die of an illness no doctor can cure, surrounded by whispers and the faint, ever present stink of fear. For now you are a child, alive and unaware. The world is full of promise and peril. You have survived your first year. That is more than most can say. You grow, as all children do, but you do not grow alone. The royal nursery, draped in silks and guarded by stone walls, is not nearly as safe as it appears to the casual visitor. Behind every tapestry, beneath every velvet pillow, and within the seams of every thick, embroidered blanket, something stirs. These are the companions you never chose and will never be rid of. They are the lice, the fleas, and the other minute monsters of medieval England. The servants, careful and well meaning, change your linen regularly, but linen is not a barrier against the tide of tiny invaders. The wet nurse who feeds you brings with her more than nourishment. She brings whatever is crawling in her hair and nesting in the folds of her gown. The nursemaids, who rock you and sing songs to lull you to sleep, themselves itch and scratch when they think no one is looking. Every member of your royal household, from the lowest scullery maid to the steward who bows deeply every morning, is a carrier, a reluctant host, a ship in the never ending migration of parasites. No one speaks of this. It would be impolite. The presence of fleas and lice is as natural and as inescapable as the wind or the rain. Bathing is a luxury, and when it happens, it is more ritual than remedy. A wooden tub is dragged before the fire, filled with hot water scented with dried rosemary or lavender. You are scrubbed with rough cloth, and the water turns gray. But when you are lifted, dripping and pink, there are always survivors hiding in the folds of your skin and hair. Tomorrow, the process will begin again. You learn an early to scratch, and you learn the rhythm of it, an absent-minded clawing behind your ear, a furtive dig at your scalp, a resigned rub at your ankles. Everyone scratches, even the king, your father, who is the mightiest man in England, is sometimes seen rubbing his beard with a grimace. No amount of power can keep the parasites away. The tapestries that decorate your chamber, glorious with scenes of chivalry and hunting, are more than just pretty pictures. They are warm havens for moths and mites who feast on the threads when no one is watching. Your bed, with its thick mattress stuffed with feathers and wool, is a nest for more than just dreams. At night, you hear the tiny scratching of claws and the faint rustle of unseen bodies in the dark. Sometimes you wake to find a line of angry red bites along your arm or neck. The nursemaid tuts and brings a new salve to smear on your skin, a mixture of goose fat and crushed herbs that soothes the itch but solves nothing. These discomforts are the price you pay for privilege. The peasants outside the castle walls suffer worse, plagued not only by lice and fleas, but by the rats that skitter through their straw beds and the clouds of flies that breed in the open drains. At least in the castle, someone will wash your clothes and sweep your floor. At least in the castle, your wounds are tended by hands that, if not clean, are at least careful. Still, the parasites are equal opportunity invaders. They do not care for birth or title. They do not recognize the golden crest above your door. They ride from one host to another, from dog to servant, from servant to lord, as indifferent to bloodlines as to the politics of court. Sometimes the itching becomes unbearable. You see your siblings, the princes and princesses of England, slap at their legs and arms, and you learn to hide your discomfort behind a mask of royal composure. It is important, you are told, never to show weakness. The fact that your tormentors are invisible to most eyes only makes them more powerful. The priests who visit the nursery sometimes preach about invisible evils, sins, demons, temptations. You wonder privately if the priests mean lice. They are, after all, both invisible and everywhere. Your childhood is a mixture of luxury and discomfort, privilege and petty misery. You are taught to believe that the world is yours, that you are destined for greatness, but your daily life is filled with small humiliations, with secret itches, and the constant, low level anxiety of being bitten, of never quite being alone. It is a lesson you will never forget, a slow education in the democracy of suffering. No matter how many servants bow, no matter how many titles are whispered in your honor, you will never escape the tiny jaws of the world that feasts upon you. Outside, in the bustling kitchens, rats gnaw at barrels and mice leave droppings in the flour. The cooks are forever swatting at flies, and the dogs who guard the gates are mangy and covered with ticks. All the wealth of England cannot keep out the crawling things that move beneath the surface. When you finally drift off to sleep at night, lulled by the dull ache of scratching and the faint music of your own discomfort, you dream of fields with no insects, of water that is always clean, of a world without itch. You will never see such a place, but it is pleasant for a moment to imagine it. This, you realize, is what it means to be born royal in England. To rule in name, but never in fact. Not over the kingdom, and certainly not over your own skin. Years roll past you like fog across the Thames. You move out of the nursery, outgrow the cradle, outpace the slow, shuffling step of nursemaids. Your life now is a parade of lessons and ceremonies, hunting trips and sermons, and of course, endless meals. The royal household believes in the healing power of roast meats and rich gravies. In England, appetite is a virtue, at least until appetite turns on you. It begins, as all things do, quietly. One morning you wake with a heaviness in your belly, as though you have swallowed a stone. You have eaten nothing unusual, only the usual parade of pies, breads, stews, and sweets that march across your plate every day. You dismiss the pain as a consequence of indulgence, a minor penalty for royal overabundance. After all, you are John of Gaunt. The table is never empty, and neither, for long, is your stomach. But the pain lingers, a dull pressure that refuses to dissolve. You try ignoring it, as you have been taught to ignore so many discomforts, but this is different from a scratch or a bite. This pain is internal, insistent, and strangely personal. You shift in your chair during the council meetings. You fidget during Mass. You excuse yourself early from the feasts. It is the beginning of an education. You learn new postures, new ways to sit so as not to disturb the ache. You discover the limits of your own patience and the limits of your own body. You tell yourself that it will pass, as all things do, but every day the pain is waiting for you, a sullen companion. The castle's physicians are called. They come in their layered robes, trailing scents of spices and musty parchment. They ask polite questions about your diet, your habits, your dreams. They look at your tongue and press cold fingers to your abdomen. They murmur to each other as if the sound of your suffering might escape and make a run for it. Their advice is always the same: avoid cold fruits, eat more boiled oats, drink herbal infusions, trust in God, and get plenty of rest. You do not like boiled oats. You do not like the taste of herbal teas, which are sometimes as bitter as the fate of a common thief. But you obey, because you are trained to obey those with knowledge. Still, the pain persists. Sometimes it sharpens unexpectedly, a sudden spasm that nearly doubles you over at the high table. You mask the grimace with a joke. You joke about the cook's heavy hand with spices, about the perils of hunting in cold weather, about the odd humor of the human body. Your courtiers laugh, grateful for the excuse to ignore what is plain to see. The great John of Gaunt is suffering. The rumors begin, as they always do. Perhaps you have been cursed. Perhaps a jealous rival has slipped something into your wine. Perhaps it is simply the price of age, of too many good meals, of too few honest prayers. You are not yet old, but you are no longer young, and the body keeps its own tally. The royal calendar never pauses for illness. There are lands to manage, armies to fund, alliances to maintain. You attend council even when you would rather not. You ride out with the hunting parties, though each jolt in the saddle sends a bolt of pain through your gut. You meet with petitioners and sign endless documents, all the while aware of the quiet rebellion beneath your ribs. At night, when the castle is still, you lie awake and stare at the beams above your bed. The pain is worse in the dark when there are no distractions. It has grown from a pebble to a stone, and now it is a weight you carry always, a constant reminder that even princes have bodies, and bodies betray. You try every remedy suggested. You eat figs. You avoid figs. You sleep on your back, then on your left side, then on your right. You pray. You curse. Nothing changes. The pain is loyal. It never leaves. Sometimes, in the privacy of your chamber, you wonder if this is how it begins for everyone. Not with a sword or a duel, not with a battle cry or the fanfare of destiny, but with a quiet, unremarkable ache, a warning bell, tolling somewhere deep inside you, heard only in moments of silence. You wonder if your father or your grandfather felt the same. You wonder if your children will remember you as strong and resolute, or as the man who sat quietly at supper, holding his stomach and saying nothing. This is the first tolling of a bell that will not be silenced. The pain, small and persistent, becomes a part of your story, as fixed as your title, as inescapable as your shadow. You carry it with you into every day, into every audience and every prayer, waiting for the moment when it will finally announce what you already fear, that even the mightiest must bow, in the end, to the smallest things. The castle physicians become a regular presence in your days, their footsteps echoing through the drafty corridors, their voices low and serious, full of complicated Latin words and the grave confidence of men who have never truly been tested by fate. You, John of Gaunt, son of kings, begin to see them less as healers and more as another inevitable burden, another shadow trailing your every movement. Your illness, it seems, is now a matter of scholarly interest. Each physician arrives weighted with the trappings of learning, long robes that sweep the floor and collect dust, wide sleeves with mysterious stains, belts loaded with tiny flasks and packets of powders. Their eyes are sharp, searching, as if they expect your symptoms to leap from your body and announce themselves aloud. They demand you describe your pain in detail, its depth, its quality, its hour of arrival and departure, as if the right words might somehow banish it. They consult thick tomes by candlelight, tracing lines of faded ink with trembling fingers. They argue quietly in corners, referencing the ancient Greeks, Hippocrates, Galen, men whose names mean little to you but everything to them. They speak of humors, black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood, as if the balance between them could explain your suffering. You are told that perhaps your black bile is in excess, or perhaps your blood has been corrupted by melancholy thoughts. Their treatments are creative, if not at always comforting. One day they suggest you eat only bland bread and weak broth. The next, you are prescribed wild game and strong wine. They bring you syrups distilled from poppies, crushed roots from the far corners of the world, and mysterious balms made of ingredients no one can name. They prepare ointments that reek of garlic and vinegar and urge you to apply them to your abdomen, which does nothing but make you feel like a well seasoned cut of meat. Worse are the potions. Each bottle is presented with the solemnity of holy relics. One is dark and sticky, another sour and milky, a third burning and sharp as fire when it touches your tongue. You drink because you must. To refuse would be to question the entire structure of medieval knowledge, and besides, your household is watching. Everyone wants to believe that something, anything, can bring relief. Your least favorite remedy is the one they call theriac, a costly blend of opium, honey, viper's flesh, and as many as 60 other ingredients imported from Venice at great expense. Its taste is indescribable. It lingers in your mouth long after you swallow, leaving you uncertain whether you have been healed or merely poisoned. The most alarming interventions are the ones that spill your blood. The leech box arrives one cold morning, gleaming with anticipation. The leeches themselves are black, fat, and eager, their bodies writhing as the physician tilts the box in the firelight. You are assured this is the best method. Bloodletting will rebalance your humors, release the evil trapped within you. The leeches latch onto your skin with greedy certainty, and you watch your royal blood fill their slippery bodies. There is a peculiar humiliation in this, one not spoken of, but deeply felt. After the leeches have had their fill, the doctors sometimes use a small, sharp knife to open a vein. The pain is quick, metallic, and soon replaced by a floating lightheadedness. The blood, dark and warm, runs into a bowl, and the physicians nod with approval as if they have witnessed a minor miracle. You are left dizzy, cold, and more exhausted than before. The pain in your belly, unbothered by all these rituals, remains unchanged. Sometimes a physician will recommend a purge. You are given a draft that empties your stomach and your bowels with alarming speed and efficiency. The experience is undignified, even by the standards of medieval medicine, but afterward, the doctors proclaim you cleansed. You feel lighter, but only because you have lost everything that once made you whole. None of these treatments bring relief. If anything, the pain seems to grow stronger, or perhaps it is only your patience that weakens. You learn to dread the arrival of the doctors, their endless suggestions, their relentless optimism. They speak in circles, full of hope, but their remedies leave you feeling as though you are drifting further from health with every passing day. Occasionally, a doctor will quietly confess his doubts, never in public, never before your court, but in those rare moments when you are alone together. He admits that medicine is still more art than science, that every cure is a gamble, every success half a miracle. You appreciate his honesty, even as you resent its implications. If the learned men cannot save you, who can? Rumors begin to swirl among the servants. Some say the doctors themselves are poisoning you, whether by accident or design. Others whisper that your sickness is a punishment for sins, a curse, or perhaps the price of royal blood. You know only this: whatever the cause, you are caught between two forces, your illness and your healers, both relentless, both impossible to escape. You begin to see your body as a battlefield, the site of constant skirmishes between the unseen agents of disease and the visible agents of medicine. Every treatment is another arrow, another wound, another desperate attempt to claim victory over a foe no one can name. You cannot help but wonder who will win and what will be left of you when the battle is over. Evenings grow longer and your appetite wanes. The pain sharpens. The air in your chambers, thick with the scent of strange ointments and burnt herbs, grows heavier with each visit. You sleep, but fitfully, haunted by dreams in which doctors chase you through endless corridors, their arms full of leeches and bottles, their faces blurred by candle smoke. In the morning, you wake to find them waiting again, eager to try another remedy, another poison. Your hope, like your strength, is dwindling. The only thing that remains certain is this: the doctors will not give up, not until you are healed, or until there is nothing left to heal. The calendar, as always, marches on with the cheerful indifference of the healthy. No illness, not even yours, is permitted to halt the workings of the royal household. Duties multiply like mice in the cellar, each one gnawing at your precious reserves of strength. Banquets must be held, feasts must be attended. Your presence is required, no, demanded, at each table laden with roast and pudding, each hall echoing with laughter that sounds, to your ears, increasingly distant and hollow. You do not remember exactly when you began to dread the royal banquets. There was a time, not so long ago, when the sight of a long, groaning table filled you with pleasure. Ducks roasted with apples and onions, capons stuffed with chestnuts, thick loaves of bread with butter fresh from the churn, honey cakes layered with almonds. All this and more was yours by right. You were a Lancaster, a prince, a man meant to eat as kings do. Now, the banquet tables look like cruel jokes. The mere thought of food can turn your stomach. What once delighted now nauseates. Your body rebels at the sight of grease and the smell of spices. Every toast to your health lands with ironic weight. Every hearty wish for your long life sounds more like a curse. When you force yourself to swallow a bite or two, the pain in your gut churns, tightening until you feel dizzy. And the air, how you come to hate the air. The great halls of the castle are filled with the mingled scents of smoke, perfume, and sweat. They are also filled with the endless chatter of courtiers, whose voices seem to buzz in your skull like flies around a wound. The air is never fresh. You long for a single clear breath. Instead, you find yourself fighting for every lungful, struggling to draw enough air to steady your spinning head. No one else seems to notice your discomfort. Your guests, those ancient earls with their stiff collars, those overeager young knights with their forced laughter, are busy performing their own rituals. They watch you closely, For in your every sigh or cough lies potential gossip. To them, your illness is a curiosity, a new flavor in the stale soup of court intrigue. You try to play your part. You smile, you raise your goblet, you offer witty replies. You make jokes at your own expense, sometimes so dark that your listeners hesitate before laughing, unsure if this is irony or confession. They rarely realize that each jest is a way to mask your pain, to keep the attention on your words and away from your shaking hands or the sudden pallor of your face. Every banquet feels longer than the last. The act of sitting upright becomes a feat of endurance. The pain in your gut settles in, humming like a distant drum, while your chest begins to feel tight, your breathing shallow and forced. The great hall, with its high ceilings and echoing voices, starts to press down on you. You feel boxed in, as if the very tapestries are leaning closer to watch. Servants hover anxiously, their eyes darting from your plate to your face and back again. They refill your goblet with strong wine, thinking it might revive your spirits. It does not. The wine tastes sharp and metallic, and each sip is a negotiation with your body. Sometimes you excuse yourself, blaming the weight of official business or a sudden, overwhelming fatigue. You escape to your private rooms where you collapse into a chair, gasping quietly for breath, sweat cold on your brow. On the worst days, you cannot even make it through the first course. The noise of the hall becomes a wall of sound, pushing in on you, suffocating you. Your head spins. You feel lightheaded, as if you might faint, and slide under the table, becoming the subject of gleeful rumor for months to come. You clutch the arms of your chair, willing yourself to stay upright, to keep breathing. Of course, there are always those who notice. You see them out of the corner of your eye, exchanging glances, whispering behind their hands. Some are sincerely concerned, others are delighted. A weak lord, after all, creates opportunities. You are not the only one at this table who smells blood in the water. Every day, your household grows more nervous. They begin to keep a closer watch. Your physicians hover at the edge of every gathering, ready to leap forward at the slightest sign. They bring you little sachets to sniff, lavender, rosemary, camphor, in hopes of clearing your airways. The odors only add to the miasma, another scent in the crowded air. You wonder sometimes if anyone truly understands how exhausted you are. Even sitting upright is a trial. Eating is torture. Breathing is work. You are no longer lord of your own body. You are a guest in it, subject to the whims of pain and breathlessness. You wish you could retreat from all of this, from the watching eyes, from the oppressive halls, from the very act of living in public. Yet you endure. You must. Your name is heavy with expectation, and the world is always watching. You drag yourself to the next banquet, the next reception, the next tedious round of pleasantries. You perform your part, because that is what princes do. The world does not pause for suffering, least of all royal suffering. And so you smile, you joke, you eat what you can, Drink what you must. All the while, your breathing grows slower, your chest tighter, the ache in your gut a steady drumbeat in the background. At times, you wonder if anyone will remember you for anything other than this. The man who sat through 1,000 banquets, suffering quietly, while the world carried on without noticing that anything was wrong at all. Morning arrives not with the gentle promise of renewal, but with a peculiar sensation, one you have come to dread. You wake in your heavy bed, the weight of blankets pressing down as if trying to pin your spirit in place, and before you can even open your eyes, you are aware of it. The taste. It sits on your tongue like an accusation, metallic, sour, faintly coppery, tinged with the memory of blood or the bitterness of old coins. You press your lips together and swallow, hoping to banish it, but it clings to the back of your throat, stubborn and persistent. You have tasted many things in your life: sweet wine from Aquitaine, roasted boar glazed in honey, the tang of citrus imported at extravagant expense, but nothing as constant or as intimate as this new presence in your mouth. It follows you from dream to waking, a companion you never invited and cannot refuse. The first time you noticed it, you blamed the cooks. Perhaps the wine had turned, or perhaps the well water had gone bad again. You summoned the steward, questioned him with what little patience you could muster, and received a flurry of apologies and promises of fresher provisions. The taste, however, did not disappear. In the days that followed, you experimented. Different cups, different plates, water drawn from a new well. You even had the silver tankards scrubbed and the cellars scoured for mold. Still, the flavor haunted you, growing stronger as your illness deepened. No one else seemed to notice. You watched your household, your wife, your children, the endless retinue of knights and ladies in waiting, as they ate and drank, laughing and chatting, lips stained with wine and crumbs. You wondered if they too were suffering in silence, or if you alone had become host to this secret malady. The physicians, when consulted, had little to offer. Some suggested it was a sign that your humors were imbalanced, that the black bile had risen to your mouth. One recommended sucking on cloves to sweeten your breath. Another, more daring, brewed a concoction of ground pearl and vinegar, insisting that such a tonic had worked wonders for a minor Italian prince who, conveniently, was long dead and unable to offer confirmation. You try the cloves. The sharp, oily flavor masks the taste for a few moments, but it always returns, stronger and more insistent. The pearl and vinegar mixture is worse, leaving your mouth puckered and your stomach rebelling in protest. The more remedies you attempt, the more you become convinced that this taste is not a symptom, but a sentence. Soon, the taste begins to infiltrate your every waking moment. It makes wine taste like blood and bread like old iron. Even the most delicate treats, rosewater jellies, candied violets, are tainted. Food loses its pleasure, replaced with an overwhelming sense of futility. Why eat when every bite is just another reminder of your body's rebellion? You grow irritable. The servants notice, tiptoeing around your moods, offering endless apologies for meals left half eaten or untouched. The cooks experiment with stronger spices, but nothing can outmatch the taste that rides in your mouth, undeterred by cinnamon or pepper. Your wife, worried, brings you a vial of imported perfume, urging you to dab it on your tongue. The result is a coughing fit and a new level of despair. At court, you grow more withdrawn. It is easier to stay silent than to explain why you push away your plate or refuse your cup. Your enemies, because every court breeds them, begin to whisper about your declining appetite, your sallow complexion, your failing strength. Some say you are being poisoned, others that you are wasting away from some shameful sin. The truth is less dramatic, and yet, in its way, more cruel. You are being undone by something as small and invisible as a taste. You take to carrying a handkerchief, finely embroidered with your initials, to press to your lips when the taste becomes unbearable. It is a feeble defense, and you know it, but it grants you a sliver of dignity, a way to mark a boundary between yourself and your failing flesh. As days blend into one another, you begin to wonder if this is what the approach of death feels like, not the sharp pain of battle or the swift blow of an assassin's blade, but a slow corrosion, a sourness that eats away at the pleasure of living. You think about those who have gone before you, uncles, cousins, forgotten lords, all carried off by illnesses that began with a whisper, a twinge, a change in the flavor of morning. At night, you pray for a day when your mouth will taste only bread or nothing at all. It is a strange prayer, perhaps even a foolish one, but it is the only hope you have left. You begin to dream of clear water, of crisp apples, of air so pure it leaves your tongue clean and your breath sweet. But when morning comes, you wake to the same familiar bitterness. It is as if your body is reminding you, day after day, that nothing in this world, no banquet, no medicine, no prayer, can cleanse you of what you have become. You swallow, grimacing, and begin another day. Nights are the worst. In the day, you can distract yourself, letters to dictate, officials to scold, 1,000 tiny crises of the kingdom clamoring for your attention. But when darkness falls, the distractions fade, and your mind is left to wander dim corridors. In the flickering light of a tallow candle, shadows lengthen on the walls, growing as monstrous as the fears that gnaw at you from the inside out. Your illness no longer confines itself to the flesh. The ache in your gut, the sourness on your tongue, the breathlessness, these have become routine, a grim background to your existence. What truly haunts you now is uncertainty. You lie awake, eyes searching the velvet canopy above your bed, and wonder, is this pain the beginning of the end, or simply another trial to be endured and forgotten? The church offers answers, though none are especially comforting. The castle chapel, cold and always slightly damp, is a place you visit more frequently these days. It is not that you have suddenly become more pious. It is simply that, when faced with the mysteries of suffering, one clings to ritual, to habit, to the illusion that somewhere, In Latin murmurs and incense smoke, there is an order to things. Your confessor, a thin, earnest man with sharp eyes and a persistent cough, becomes a fixture by your side. He is summoned at all hours, day and night, whenever your pain sharpens or your thoughts grow dark. At first, these visits are formal. You kneel, he listens. You enumerate your sins in careful, courtly phrases. Impatience, pride, a harsh word here, a jealous thought there. You confess to gluttony, for you have certainly eaten well, and to wrath, for you have snapped at those who serve you poorly. But as the pain lingers and deepens, the confessions become less about etiquette and more about fear. You confess everything, even the most trivial faults. Once, you recall, you coveted your brother's horse. Another time, you lied about a minor hunting accident. In the stillness of night, every small misdeed seems enormous, every careless word a potential anchor dragging your soul down. The confessor assures you that your penance will be light, that God is merciful to those who are truly contrite. You nod and mumble prayers, but there is a part of you that suspects mercy is a luxury granted only to others. In your darkest hours, you wonder if the church's talk of sin and redemption is just another way to keep the powerful frightened, as helpless as peasants before a storm. Sometimes, when the pain in your belly flares sharp, you imagine you are being punished. The priests speak of divine retribution as often as they do of forgiveness. Was there a moment years ago when you slighted the wrong ally or issued an unjust command? Was this illness sown by your own hand, a harvest you must now reap? The more your body fails, the more your mind invents reasons for its betrayal. You recall arguments left unresolved, debts left unpaid, acts of mercy withheld. You remember the hungry faces outside the castle gates, the forgotten promises to be generous, to be just. In the darkness, these memories become heavy as lead, pinning you beneath the covers. Your confessor tries to reassure you. He reminds you that even saints suffered, that Christ himself knew pain and betrayal. You try to believe him. Some nights you do. Other nights your doubts return, circling like wolves at the edge of the firelight. What if your suffering is not a test, but a sentence? What if death is not the end of pain, but its beginning? Fear takes many forms. There is the fear of dying, yes, but there is also the fear of dying badly, of leaving your affairs in chaos, of being remembered for weakness rather than strength, of meeting your end unshriven and alone. The stories of men who died with unconfessed sins haunt you, their souls condemned to wander, restless and weeping. You imagine your own shade, lingering in these drafty halls, doomed to forever repeat confessions that never quite absolve. You become preoccupied with order. You review your will, dictate last instructions, insist on reconciliations with old enemies and distant kin. Each act of preparation is a ward against the terror that stalks you in the small hours. If you cannot control your body, you can at least attempt to control the manner of your passing. Still, The fear is never fully banished. When the candle gutters out and your chamber is silent, but for your ragged breathing, you return to the old prayers. Deliver us from evil, you murmur, though you are never sure if you mean the evil outside or the evil within. Morning always comes, eventually, though it brings no true relief. The world greets you with the same taste in your mouth, the same pain in your gut, the same dull anxiety. The priests are right about one thing at least. Every day is a new chance for confession, a new chance for fear. And so, each night, you prepare for another reckoning, one more whispered inventory of your soul, one more hope that forgiveness, if it comes, will arrive before the next bout of pain. Days blend together in a haze of discomfort and ritual, but it is the nights, truly, that make you aware of how little separates the living from the dead. As the light fades, the castle's great stones seem to settle with groans of their own, ancient and exhausted, like a tired beast preparing for sleep. And then, from the cold dark, comes the sound that you dread above all else, the tolling of the bell. At first, you hardly notice it. The castle bell is a fixture, marking hours, calling to prayer, signaling meal times and the occasional celebration. But now, its sound seems to come with a new heaviness. It rings not only for ceremony, but as a grim punctuation to each day, echoing through empty corridors and slipping beneath the cracks in your door. It is a sound that belongs to both the world of the living and the world of the dead, a reminder with every toll that someone somewhere is always dying. You are not the only one who hears it. The servants, superstitious and anxious, cross themselves or mutter prayers when the bell sounds after dark. Some say it means a soul has passed. Others claim it is an omen, a warning that death is stalking the castle's halls, invisible but relentless. You watch their faces as they move through their nightly tasks, hands trembling, eyes fixed on the floor, as if afraid to meet the gaze of something lurking in the shadows. The bell's resonance is physical. You feel it in your bones, a shudder that seems to settle in your aching stomach and your tired heart. Each night it rings, the sound leaks into your dreams, mingling with your own moans and the wordless whispers of all the souls who have suffered here before you. You do not cry out. Crying is undignified, and dignity is one of the last things you still possess. Instead, you allow the moan to remain inside, echoing silently, a low, ceaseless accompaniment to your pain. Your chamber is quieter than ever, but the silence is not a comfort. In the stillness, every sound becomes magnified. The slow creak of a door in the corridor, the hesitant footsteps of servants, the faint clatter of dishes somewhere far below. At times, you can hear the wind whistle through cracks in the walls, or the muffled barking of dogs out in the courtyard, or, most chilling of all, the scurrying of rats behind the wainscot. Each noise is a reminder that the castle is alive with restless movement, even as you lie here, increasingly immobile, caught between wakefulness and sleep. You have taken to sleeping in fits and starts, drifting off only to awaken suddenly, uncertain of how much time has passed. The candle beside your bed burns lower and lower, and the shadows in the corners seem to deepen, swirling into shapes your mind would rather not name. Sometimes you think you see faces in the darkness, pale, watchful, patient. You tell yourself these are tricks of the light, but in your weaker moments, you are not so sure. The bell tolls again, and you wonder, for whom does it ring this time? Is it for some servant lost to fever, some guard slain in a skirmish, some child claimed by the cold? Or is it for you, a rehearsal for the moment when your own soul will slip away and the living will mark your passing with a final, solemn clang? This question burrows deep, gnawing at you more persistently than even the pain in your belly. You know what the physicians will say: more leeches, more potions, more prayers. You know what the priests will offer: another confession, another promise of redemption. You know what your courtiers expect: a brave face, a steady hand, a few words of comfort for those more frightened than you. But you are tired, tired of pretending, tired of hoping, tired of waiting for relief that never comes. The sound of the bell is no longer merely an annoyance. It is a kind of presence, a witness to your slow decline. It marks the passing of time, but also the shrinking of your world, the gradual narrowing of your life to the four walls of this cold, echoing chamber. Some nights you imagine what will happen when you are gone. Will the bell ring longer, more mournfully, for a prince? Will the servants pause in their work to cross themselves, or will they hurry on, eager to escape the chill that seems to follow the sound? Will your family weep, or will they sigh in relief, freed at last from the burden of your decline? You wonder what words will be whispered in the shadows. He was strong once, perhaps, or he suffered bravely. Maybe they will say nothing at all, the way people fall silent when a funeral procession passes. After all, everyone in the castle lives with death. Your passing will simply be another verse in a long, unending song. Tonight, as the bell tolls once more, you feel the moan rise within you, heavy and resigned. It does not escape your lips, but it settles deeper, a private echo of the public sound. The night stretches out ahead of you, long and cold, punctuated only by the certainty that the bell will ring again, tonight, tomorrow, and on every night that remains to you, and you, like everyone else, will listen, and you will wait. It is a cold morning, and you are awakened not by sunlight, but by the presence of your physicians, silent, intent, and carrying the tools of their peculiar art. Bloodletting, they assure you, is the key to rebalancing your humors. 1,000 years of medical wisdom has converged on this. When the body is ill, it must be drained. The proof, as always, is the unwavering confidence of the men holding the knives. The preparations are almost ceremonial. Linen cloths are spread across your bed, bowls and basins are set nearby, gleaming and cold. The leech box arrives, and for a moment it almost seems to move of its own accord, as if the creatures inside are impatient to begin their work. Your physicians exchange polite murmurs, each determined to display just the right blend of reverence and excitement, as if you are a holy relic and they are the chosen priests. You are not given the luxury of protest. Bloodletting is a tradition, and traditions are not for questioning. The physician selects a spot on your arm, a vein you have come to know intimately over these last months. With a practiced hand, he makes a small incision. The pain is sharp but brief. You focus on the ceiling beams, tracing the ancient wood grain, willing yourself not to watch as your own blood wells up and drips steadily into the bowl below. They say the blood must be dark, thick, sluggish. This is the evidence of illness. Yours obliges, oozing in slow, unenthusiastic pulses, as if your very life has grown weary. The physicians nod in approval. You are praised for your cooperation, as if you have volunteered for this ritual rather than simply endured it. Next come the leeches. You have come to hate them, their rubbery, glistening bodies, the way they wriggle hungrily in the jar, their mouths puckering in anticipation. The physician places them with care, one after another, on your skin. The sensation is peculiar, a cold, wet kiss, followed by a persistent tugging as they latch on. They suck with single minded devotion, growing fatter with each mouthful of your blood. The sight is nauseating, but you force yourself to look. If nothing else, it reminds you that you are still, in some fashion, alive. After a time, the leeches fall away, bloated and sluggish, as if your illness has exhausted even them. They are gathered into a fresh jar, and you find yourself absurdly grateful to see them go. The physicians discuss the results in hushed tones. Some are convinced you look better already. Your skin, they say, is less pale, your eyes clearer. You know otherwise. You are simply lighter, emptier, and infinitely more tired. The weakness after bloodletting is profound. You lie back, breathless, dizzy, as if your spirit is threatening to drift away with the last drops of blood. The physicians urge you to rest. They prescribe broth, thin and tasteless, and assure you that the next session will yield even greater benefits. You nod because you must. There is always a next session. In the days that follow, you notice no improvement. If anything, your pain seems to have grown sharper. Your skin, already sallow, now carries the faint bruises of the leech's embrace. You move more slowly, your steps unsteady. Servants watch with worried eyes, hovering near your door, but never quite entering. Everyone in the castle knows the meaning of the bloody linens carried away each morning. They have seen it before. Rumors swirl, as rumors always do. Some say the bloodletting is saving your life. Others whisper that it is hastening your end. A few superstitious souls believe the leeches are consuming not just your blood, but your very soul. You find you do not care. Whether this is cure or curse, it is all the same to you. Each session leaves you weaker, more resigned. There is something peculiarly medieval in this ritual, this belief that health lies not in healing, but in subtraction. Your body is treated like a cask that must be drained of its poison, emptied and emptied again until only health remains. But the poison you suspect is cleverer than your physicians. It replenishes itself as quickly as they can draw it out. The castle becomes a kind of hospital, a place where hope is measured in pints lost and bowls filled. After each bloodletting, you dream of rivers, you dream of red water winding through endless fields, always flowing away from you, never returning. You wake exhausted, sweating, your heart pounding weakly against your ribs. The pain in your stomach is unchanged. The only thing that grows is your sense of futility. Still, the ritual continues. The physicians persist, their faith unwavering. To them, every drop spilled is a victory, every leech detached a small triumph. To you, it is simply another day survived, another night endured. You wonder sometimes how many more such victories your body can withstand before there is nothing left to give. And always in the background, the bell tolls, marking each session with its mournful song. In the great tapestry of your life, this is what it has come to: the steady drip of blood, the soft hiss of leeches, and the endless echoing chime of the castle bell. There is a particular misery reserved for those who once loved to eat. Once, not so long ago, your table was a theater of delights. You looked forward to the arrival of each course, the roasted fowl, steaming and fragrant, glistening with fat, the sweet custards, the fresh bread, the ripe fruit, all brought with ceremony and pride. Banquets were not merely feasts, they were declarations of power, tokens of health, evidence that the world for a time could be ordered and enjoyed. Now, food has become your enemy. Every dish set before you is a small act of aggression, a test of endurance you invariably fail. The very smell of cooking, the sizzle of fat, the heavy tang of garlic, the bittersweet scent of spices now turns your stomach. Sometimes you force yourself to nibble a little bread, only to find it tasteless and dry, a mouthful of dust. Even broth, which once seemed a comfort, coats your tongue with a film of despair. You notice the change in others' eyes before you notice it in yourself. The servants watch you, their expressions anxious as you leave plates untouched and cups half drained. The cooks begin to experiment, searching for something, anything, that might coax an appetite from your ruined body. Dishes are made sweeter, then saltier, then so bland they could offend no one, and yet none of it matters. The more they try, the less you care. It is not simply that you do not want to eat, it is that you cannot imagine wanting anything ever again. Food, like laughter, like hope, belongs to another world, one you no longer inhabit. Hunger has deserted you, replaced by a leaden fatigue that settles in your bones. You find yourself sleeping more often, drifting in and out of consciousness, not because sleep brings comfort, but because waking has become so pointless. This loss of appetite is not the polite fading away the poets describe. It is ugly and undignified. You are often nauseated. Some mornings you retch into a basin, producing only bile, your stomach too empty to offer anything else. Sometimes, when the pain in your belly grows sharp, you clutch at yourself as if you might be able to claw out the ache. There are moments when the cramps double you over, when tears sting your eyes, not from grief, but from the body's relentless betrayal. You grow thin, your rings slip from your fingers. Your clothes hang loose, needing to be taken in by the castle tailor who comes to your chamber and measures you in silence, his eyes never quite meeting yours. Once you would have made a joke to put him at ease. Now you have no energy for jokes. Your household becomes quieter. Conversations at your table dwindle to murmurs, as if the absence of your appetite has sucked the life from the room. Courtiers who once scrambled for seats at your side now invent excuses to dine elsewhere, anxious to avoid the sight of their lord, once so robust, now wasting away before their eyes. Your family, too, changes. Your wife sits with you in the evenings, her embroidery forgotten in her lap, watching you with a look that is equal parts concern and helplessness. Your children, when they visit, bring you small gifts from the kitchens, sweetmeats, honeyed almonds, spiced cakes, offerings you cannot accept. You thank them, smile as best you can, and promise to try again tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, and nothing changes. You watch as the world moves on without you. The gardens are tended, the markets bustle, the kitchens clatter with activity. Even the castle dogs grow fat while you fade, and you feel a strange, bitter envy for their simple appetites, their oblivious joy in a bone or a scrap of meat. The physicians notice your decline and offer new remedies, each more elaborate than the last. They bring you potions said to revive the appetite, infusions of mint, concoctions of ginger, wines steeped with rare fruits. Some are so foul you gag at the first sip, others so insipid they might as well be water. Nothing works. If anything, their efforts only remind you how far you have fallen. Once, you tried to keep up appearances. You forced yourself to eat, to smile, to pretend that your appetite was simply hiding, not lost forever. But pretense is exhausting, and now you have no strength for it. You realize, with a cold clarity, that the death of appetite is not just a symptom, it is the prelude to the death of hope. The castle is quieter now, your chamber a kind of waiting room for an exit you can no longer ignore. Every day is much the same, a little food refused, a little sleep snatched, a little more weight lost. Each morning you wake with a dull surprise that you are still alive. Each night you wonder if this will be the last. You have stopped hoping for recovery. Now you hope only for an end to the discomfort, a little peace, a little rest. Your world has shrunk to the space between your bed and the window, and your ambitions are modest. A day without pain, a night without fear. Perhaps, if you are lucky, a final meal that tastes of something, anything, other than defeat. Until then, you close your eyes and let the emptiness settle in, heavier than any banquet, more final than any farewell. Outside your window, Life stumbles on. The city does not stop for the suffering of its lords, nor does it pause to consider that illness is not so choosy about the heads it crowns. The rumors, though, do not need an invitation. They slip through the cracks of your castle and spread through the streets, growing more elaborate with each telling, fattened by the appetites of those who thrive on other people's misery. At first, the whispers are hesitant. A merchant's wife wonders aloud why the great John of Gaunt is seen less often in the city square. A butcher, waiting for his coin, grumbles that the castle cook has been buying less meat. A serving girl, pale and clever, tells her mother that the master's voice is weaker, that the light in his chambers burns long into the night. All around, people start to wonder what ails the Duke. In the taverns, speculation multiplies. Some blame the food. Perhaps you were poisoned by a rival or by a careless cook who served spoiled venison. Others suspect a curse cast by some foreign witch or a well placed hex from a jealous courtier. There is a story about a mysterious visitor who slipped into the castle one rainy evening and left before sunrise, never seen again. Every detail is added, changed, improved until it is almost unrecognizable. There are those who say the Duke is being punished. He grew too proud, mutters the baker's wife, kneading dough with more force than necessary. God punishes the proud. A shoemaker, warming his hands by the fire, adds, I heard he never confessed after Michaelmas last year. That's why the illness lingers. Another insists that it is simply the way of things. Noble or peasant, all must eventually face the reckoning of their flesh. These conversations circle through the city's winding lanes, echoing off the stone walls and through the market stalls. The more the story is told, the less it resembles reality. In the end, it does not matter what is true. What matters is that everyone has a version to believe, a story to tell as they go about their own uncertain lives. The rumors find fertile ground. Illness is never just a private matter, especially not when it visits a house as grand as yours. For every rumor about your suffering, there is a shadow of fear that creeps through the city. People remember old plagues, old curses, old seasons of death. They cross themselves more often, hang sprigs of herbs over their doors, mutter charms at sunset to ward off evil. In the poorest quarters, mothers keep their children close, as if your sickness might seep out through the castle walls and poison the city itself. Your own household is not immune to these anxieties. The servants talk in low voices, careful to fall silent when you approach. Some are genuinely concerned, others are merely curious, eager for the smallest scrap of news to bring home to their families. The older servants shake their heads knowingly. They have seen lords come and go, each one thinking himself immortal until the body proves otherwise. Even the castle's daily rhythms begin to shift. Fewer visitors come to call. Those who do are more guarded, their greetings less hearty, their eyes always darting to the door, as if hoping to escape the invisible miasma. Courtiers who once jostled for your attention now linger in the background, uncertain whether proximity to you is a blessing or a risk. In quieter moments, you find yourself wondering how much of this is your own fault. Did you bring the curse upon yourself? Did you anger God or fate or some more immediate enemy? The city's fear seeps into your chamber, mingling with your own doubts, until you begin to believe that the rumors might have some kernel of truth, however absurd. You catch glimpses of the city from your window, children darting through muddy alleys, merchants arguing over prices, soldiers lounging by the gate. Life continues, as it always does, indifferent to your pain. Yet you sense a nervousness, a kind of watchfulness, as if everyone is waiting for something, a miracle, a disaster, or simply the end of your story. Sometimes, in your more lucid moments, you are amused by the creativity of it all. If nothing else, you have provided a diversion in hard times. The tales grow wilder with every telling. You are dying of heartbreak, of witchcraft, of a wound received in secret battle. You are being poisoned by your wife, or by your son, or by a jealous rival from France. Someone swears they saw you wandering the halls at midnight, pale as a ghost, searching for your lost youth. Each version is more dramatic than the last, and none of them matter. At night, the bell tolls again, and you imagine the city pausing to listen, to wonder whose turn will come next. You wonder, too, how you will be remembered when the stories finally settle, if anyone will recall the truth, or if it will be lost amid the rumors and the fears that now swirl around you like a second illness. Your appetite may have vanished, your strength may be fading, but your legend is growing, reshaped daily by the imaginations of strangers. In the end, perhaps this is all that remains, a story told by those who never knew you, in a city that will continue to whisper your name long after the truth of your suffering is forgotten. The confessor comes more often now. His steps are soft in the corridor, as if he fears startling you or waking whatever ancient ghosts haunt these halls. Each time he enters your chamber, his eyes scan your face for signs of guilt, of pain, of some last minute epiphany that might save your soul, or at least make his task more interesting. You are both performing a ritual as old as illness itself, a liturgy for the uncertain. At first, you play your role with polite indifference. The litany of sins is familiar: pride, envy, impatience, gluttony, though that seems more ironic now. A few half remembered moments of cruelty. You say the words because they are expected, because the church teaches that confession is the first step toward absolution. The confessor listens, nods, offers the appropriate prayers and small penances. It is a game you both know well. But as your illness settles deeper and the boundaries between night and day blur, something changes. The confessions grow less tidy, less rehearsed. You find yourself speaking more honestly, not from piety, but from exhaustion. What is there to hide from a man who has seen death in 100 faces, who knows the smell of fear as intimately as any physician knows the scent of rot. One night, when the pain in your belly is especially sharp and your mind flickers at the edge of fever, you confess things you never meant to say. Not grand betrayals or bloody treasons, nothing so poetic, but the smaller shames, the pettiness, the ordinary failures that gather over a lifetime. You remember the servant you dismissed for breaking a goblet, though it was your own hand that knocked it to the floor. You recall the promise made to a friend, long forgotten, and the bitter words exchanged with your brother on a day that should have been joyful. The confessor listens, silent and intent, as if collecting these memories for some secret archive. The more you speak, the more you wonder if confession is meant for the soul or for the flesh. Does the telling make the pain less real or simply more bearable? Does naming your regrets change the course of your suffering, or does it merely give you something else to think about in the long, empty hours between dusk and dawn? Sometimes the confessor asks questions. Did you forgive your enemies? Did you keep faith with your vows? Did you show mercy when you had the chance? These are questions with no easy answers. You hesitate, searching for the truth or something close enough to pass. The lines between sin and circumstance have blurred. The things you regret and the things you would do again are tangled together like the sheets on your bed, damp and twisted by fever. You sense the confessor's urgency. He wants you to make peace, to tidy up your soul before the end comes. He is not cruel, but he is persistent. He encourages you to forgive those who wronged you, to seek forgiveness from those you wronged. It is easier in theory than in practice. Some wounds are too old to heal, some debts too long forgotten to pay. Still, you try, if only for the comfort of ritual, the hope that the act itself matters. Sometimes your confessions wander beyond the boundaries of sin. You speak of your fears, your doubts, the emptiness that has crept into your days. You admit to being afraid, not just of death, but of dying badly, of being remembered not for your deeds, but for your decline. You wonder aloud if there is any point to penance when the world is so full of suffering, when even the greatest lords are brought low by something as petty as a pain in the belly. The confessor does not have answers. He offers prayers, soft and rhythmic, and sometimes sits in silence as if hoping God will fill the emptiness between you with something more than regret. You are grateful for his presence, even when you resent the reminders of your mortality. In the stillness that follows each confession, you feel both lighter and heavier. There is relief in naming your failures and offering them up to someone who does not judge you for them. But there is also a strange sense of loss, as if with each word you are handing over pieces of yourself, scattering them like coins on the floor for someone else to sweep away. The church says that confession is a preparation for death, a way of making the soul clean before it faces judgment. You wonder if that is really true, or if it is simply a way of keeping the living busy while they wait for the end. Perhaps it does not matter. In a world where pain is constant and certainty is rare, even a small ritual can be an anchor. You continue the ritual, not out of hope, but out of habit. Each confession is another step down a narrowing path, another hour passed in the long watch for morning. Sometimes you imagine that you will keep confessing endlessly until there is nothing left, no sins, no regrets, no fears, only silence. And perhaps in that silence, you will finally find rest. As the end begins to assert itself with more confidence, your world narrows still further. The physician's visits grow shorter, the confessor's prayers longer, and you, John of Gaunt, who once planned armies and presided over councils, find your remaining authority reduced to small acts of planning for a future you will not see. It is time for final instructions, for the settling of debts and grudges, for the kind of arrangements that reveal just how much of life is unfinished business. Your chamber becomes a theater for farewells and negotiations. The door never seems to close. Relatives drift in and out. Daughters, sons, nephews, grandchildren, some you remember fondly, others whose names you must quietly ask a servant to remind you. Each enters with the same blend of concern and calculation, as if measuring how much of your legacy might fall their way. There are tears, yes, but also tension. Old arguments surface, the sharpness undulled by time or your own condition. You summon each family member in turn, following the order your secretary has prepared. You wish you could simply gather them all at once and be done with it, but your strength is now a resource to be rationed like gold in a failing treasury. Each audience is carefully staged, a few words of comfort, a token of affection, sometimes a gentle reminder of a forgotten promise or an old debt. You try to say something meaningful to each, something that will survive your absence, but words, which once came easily, are now as stubborn as your appetite. The oldest children are the most composed, the most political. They know the weight of inheritance, the ways of courts and kingdoms. Their questions are veiled as concern, but you hear the undertones. What of the lands in the north? Who will command your retainers? Which alliances must be honored? Which can be quietly forgotten? You give them answers, some honest, some less so, because you have learned that too much clarity is its own kind of cruelty. You see it in their eyes, the calculation, the anxiety, the hope. Some are already planning for a world without you. Others cannot imagine it or cannot admit it. There is a sharpness in the room, like a knife poised to cut the final thread. You try to address the old wounds. Some relatives are estranged, still nursing grievances decades old. You attempt reconciliation, or at least the performance of it, for you know how easily such dramas are remembered after you are gone. There are apologies, some sincere, some simply practiced. There are promises to make peace, to do better, to keep the family whole. Whether these promises will survive your death, you do not know. Your wife is with you often, a silent partner in this slow parade. Her face is worn by worry and sleepless nights, but she is steady. In quieter moments, you thank her, not with the grand speeches of your youth, but with a squeeze of the hand, a whispered word. She accepts your gratitude, but you both know that soon she will have her own battles to fight, her own position to defend in a world suddenly more dangerous and uncertain. The younger children, too, are summoned. Their tears are more genuine, their fears less easily concealed. Some do not understand the ritual, only that their world is changing in ways that make them small and frightened. You do what you can to comfort them, offering small gifts, gentle words, promises of protection from older siblings and trusted retainers. It is all theater, but sometimes theater is all that stands between hope and despair. In the background, the household staff move with unusual silence. The servants are discreet but attentive, keeping an eye on the flow of visitors, smoothing rumpled sheets, bringing tea and broth that will go untouched. The steward stands ready with lists and ledgers, as if one more tally might delay the inevitable. The chaplain waits nearby, his hands folded, ready to step in if the talk turns too dark, or if a confession that threatens to become a curse. And so the days pass, measured not in meals or hours, but in conversations, in the slow accounting of relationships. You try to say goodbye to everyone who matters. You try to tie up loose ends, to prepare your family for what comes next. It is an impossible task. There are always words left unsaid, always quarrels that resist resolution, always shadows on the horizon. Yet, for all the futility, you persist. Perhaps it is habit, perhaps it is love, or perhaps it is simply that, in these final acts, you find a measure of dignity, a sense of purpose in a world that has otherwise reduced you to waiting. As night falls and your family slips away, one by one, you are left with the hollow quiet of your chamber, the sound of distant voices, and the heavy knowledge that soon even these small acts of authority will be taken from you. The only certainty is that when you are gone, the dramas will continue. Different names, different faces, but the same old story, repeating itself as reliably as the tolling of the castle bell. It is a strange thing to discover, so late in life, just how many remedies a body can endure. As your decline becomes undeniable, the parade of medicine grows more frantic, the bottles and brews more mysterious, the logic behind their use ever more elusive. What was once a calm, if ineffectual, regimen of bland broths and herbal teas has become a desperate voyage into the dark waters of medieval medicine, a realm where faith and folly sail side by side. Your chamber now smells like the storeroom of an apothecary. On every surface lie bowls, vials, pouches, and mortars, stained with the residue of substances better left unnamed. Servants come and go, bearing ever stranger concoctions. There is less ceremony in the doctor's arrivals now, more urgency, more whispered argument. You catch snippets, liverwort, mandrake, unicorn horn, as they bicker over whether the cure for your affliction is to be found in the roots of the earth or the bowels of a beast. The simplest medicines are the least troubling. Infusions of chamomile or mint to soothe your stomach, weak beer to settle the humors, a cup of hot milk with honey for sleep. But even these fail to bring comfort, let alone healing. More complex brews follow. The physicians pound dried snake into powder, steep rare herbs in wine, grind pearls and precious stones into dust, all to be mixed, swallowed, or rubbed onto your aching flesh. Each potion comes with its own story, a miracle worked on a distant lord, a dying monk restored to health, a peasant who lived to 90 after swallowing nothing but nettle soup. You try them all. Some are so bitter that they bring tears to your eyes, others so viscous they stick in your throat, refusing to be swallowed. Occasionally, you vomit them up at once, offending both your own dignity and the sensibilities of the physician on duty. The taste of sickness, metal, sour, relentless, lingers on your tongue, impervious to even the most exotic flavorings. It is not just what you swallow, but what is smeared, poulticed, or burned. Your skin becomes a canvas for experiment, plasters of honey and herbs, ointments stinking of garlic and animal fat, wraps of linen soaked in mysterious oils. Once, a doctor insists on applying a compress made from boiled moss and dried blood, his confidence undimmed by your obvious discomfort. He explains, as if to a child, that the ancients believed the moss would draw out the evil vapors. You nod, too tired to argue, and allow the ritual to proceed. Some treatments border on the mystical. The room is fumigated with smoldering herbs, sage, juniper, rosemary, clouds of fragrant smoke meant to purify the air and chase out the spirits of disease. Incantations are whispered, blessings are invoked. One old woman is summoned from a nearby village, reputed to have the touch. She waves her hands above your body, muttering words in a dialect even the priests cannot quite decipher. The household stands in awkward silence, half hoping for a miracle, half expecting nothing at all. You begin to realize how little it separates medicine from magic. The line between doctor and charlatan blurs, the difference measured more by confidence than by efficacy. Each physician brings his own favorite remedy, his own philosophy, his own warnings about the failings of all other schools. They scold each other in Latin, then turn to you with the same reassuring smile, promising relief. But relief does not come. With every new treatment, your weakness deepens. Sometimes the medicines send you into a stupor. Sometimes they rouse you to feverish agitation. You sweat through nights and shiver through days, never quite sure if the latest remedy is helping or harming, if the line between cure and poison is not, in fact, imaginary. The castle's air is thick with the scent of desperation. In your rare moments of lucidity, you wonder what stories the servants will tell after you are gone. Will they recall the days when doctors came with rare spices and jewels, promising that health could be bought by the ounce? Will they laugh about the charms and potions, or shudder at the memory of the things they saw and smelled behind your door? There is a certain irony in the sheer expense of your decline. You, who once weighed the kingdom's gold, now see it transmuted into powders, salves, and elixirs, none of which offer more comfort than a kind word or a gentle hand. The rarest pearls are ground into paste, the most precious amber dissolved in spirits, all in the hope that some unseen force will be swayed by wealth, where science and faith have failed. But in the end, the dark waters close over your hopes as surely as over your body. The medicines become background noise, another futile ritual to fill the long hours. When you swallow a new potion or endure another foul smelling plaster, you do so not with hope, but with the resignation of a man who has run out of answers. The only certainty is that each new cure brings you closer to the only true medicine left: time. As the candles burn low and the physicians retreat in frustration, you are left in the heavy silence of your chamber, surrounded by the relics of so many failed remedies. Outside, the night deepens. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of herbs, smoke, and the bitter aftertaste of hope denied. You close your eyes, drift on the tide of strange medicines, and wonder, if only briefly, whether there might be healing somewhere in the darkness beyond. Sleep no longer comes as a gentle visitor. Instead, it arrives with the rough hands of fever, dragging you through strange and shifting landscapes of the mind. In your waking hours, the castle is gray and familiar: stone walls, smoky candles, careful voices. But when your eyelids droop and the potions take hold, reality frays at the edges, and you drift into places where pain, memory, and imagination blend together in a confusion of images both vivid and absurd. At first, the visions are little more than dreams. You walk through sunlit meadows, chase deer with your brothers, dine in grand halls where every course tastes as it once did: sweet, hot, real. But always, even in these pleasant places, there is something wrong: a shadow at the door, a flicker in the corner of your eye, the persistent ache in your belly following you through fields and feasts alike. You never escape yourself. Even the happiest memories are haunted. Then the dreams grow darker, more insistent. You see faces from your past, some friendly, some not, old rivals and friends, alive and dead, parade through your chamber as if summoned by your suffering. You find yourself holding counsel with men you know to be long buried, their voices echoing in the corners of your room, speaking in riddles or asking questions for which you have no answers. Their words twist together with your own regrets, binding you tighter than any fever ever could. Sometimes the dreams spill over into waking. You blink, and the candlelight seems to waver in unnatural patterns. The physician's silhouette at your bedside stretches and grows, his face melting into the features of your father, then your enemy, then someone you cannot quite name. You reach for water and feel a hand grasp yours, cold and unfamiliar. When you try to speak, your tongue is thick, your words slurred, as if you are calling through water. At other times, the hallucinations are more subtle: whispers in the dark, the faint sound of footsteps where there should be none, the icy certainty that someone is watching you from just beyond the glow of the fire. You ask the servants if they see anything, but they only exchange worried glances, murmur prayers, and offer you another bitter draught. Each night you slip further from certainty, unsure whether you are awake or dreaming, alive or already half a ghost. The most disturbing visions are the ones that seem almost plausible. You see yourself walking the castle corridors, hale and strong, giving orders, receiving homage. In these moments, hope flares painfully, only to be snuffed out as you awaken to the familiar weight of the sheets, the smell of herbs, the ache that is now your only companion. Sometimes you wonder if the fever is not a mercy, if madness is a softer bed than the one you have been given. Your family, alarmed, tries to comfort you, but their presence sometimes makes the confusion worse. You mistake your eldest son for your long dead brother. You call your daughter by the name of a childhood friend. Their faces swim before your eyes, and you feel both shame and relief when they gently correct you. It is easier, sometimes, not to recognize them at all, to pretend that they, too, are visitors from some other world. The physicians insist the hallucinations are a sign that the bad humors are working their way out, that the mind must be purged as thoroughly as the body. They debate the merits of opium, poppy syrup, and yet another round of leeching. Their remedies leave you dazed and numb, drifting in and out of lucidity like a boat caught in a slow current. You begin to prefer the world of dreams, however troubling, to the relentless pain and indignity of waking. In the rare moments of clarity, you try to hold on to something real, a word, a familiar object, the shape of the window in the morning light. But the effort is exhausting, and the border between reality and nightmare grows thinner each day. You find yourself longing not for healing, but for oblivion, for the peace of a sleep without dreams or shadows. In this endless twilight of fever and memory, you lose track of time. Days, nights, seasons, these are concerns for the living. You exist in fragments, flashes, scenes that play and replay with no order or sense. You try to remember your life, to gather the pieces into some kind of story, but the story slips through your fingers like water, and always, at the heart of it, the pain persists. It anchors you to your body even as your mind tries to flee. It is the only constant, the only truth that survives when everything else has turned to mist. Eventually, you stop fighting the visions. You accept them as companions, as real in their way, as the stone walls and cold sheets. You listen to the voices, answer their questions, walk with your ghosts, and somewhere in the distance, far beyond the reach of your failing senses, the bell tolls again, calling you back, reminding you that the end is nearer now than ever before. The castle, once alive with the daily thrum of activity, voices in the corridors, the ring of hammers in the courtyard, the rhythm of boots on flagstones, now hushes itself as your condition worsens. Your own room has become the eye of a gathering storm, a place where every sound is measured and every movement careful, as if to rouse you is to rouse the very presence of death itself. You become aware, even through the haze of pain and fever, that people tread differently near your door. Footsteps are lighter now, almost apologetic, as though the weight of a heel might tip the delicate balance you have struck between this world and the next. Servants who once bustled in and out now linger outside, whispering before daring to cross the threshold. Some pause, hand raised, listening for any sign that it is safe to enter. No groans, no curses, no urgent calls for help. Just the sound of your ragged breath and the faint crackle of the fire. The household exists in a state of half silence, a conspiracy of anticipation and dread. Even the family arguments have grown muted, exchanged in corners, or hidden behind closed doors. You sometimes catch the faint echo of a quarrel, names hissed like secrets, old grievances revived with a new urgency, the anxieties of inheritance and position mixing with genuine fear. But these disputes never reach your ears directly. When your children or siblings stand by your bedside, they present only the most sanitized versions of themselves, their voices soft, their words measured, as if afraid of startling the patient, of startling death. Every visitor arrives with a look of calculation and concern, the two so closely mingled it is impossible to untangle which is which. Some come to offer comfort, some to settle scores, some merely to be counted among those who were there in your final days. Their footsteps, too, are muffled, a parade of guilt and hope and thinly veiled ambition. There are fewer of them now. Each day brings another name absent from the roll call of your retinue. Your closest attendants have developed a new kind of vigilance. The maid who brings your water listens for signs, changes in your breathing, the tremor in your voice. The physician's apprentice keeps a record of your coughs, your fevers, the shifting color of your skin. Everyone becomes an amateur observer of mortality, eager to witness, perhaps to document, the moment when you cross that invisible line. No one says it aloud, of course. Death is treated as a rumor, a possibility, never a certainty. They talk around it, using words like rest, recovery, peace, but the meaning is always the same. You hear it in the way the steward hesitates when discussing the spring planting, or how the chaplain lingers just a moment longer at the end of his prayers, waiting for a sign that this visit will not be the last. Nightfall is when the footsteps grow most tentative. Torches are dimmed in the corridor. Voices are little more than breaths. The great doors to your wing are closed earlier, as if to contain whatever sickness or spirit might be lurking within. You imagine death itself pacing these halls, testing the boards, peering through the gaps beneath your door, listening for the weakening drumbeat of your heart. You find, in this atmosphere, a strange companionship. Death is no longer a specter in the distance, but an uninvited guest at your bedside, polite but insistent. You sense its presence in the cool air at dusk, in the flicker of the candle, in the growing reluctance of your own body to obey your commands. You do not fear it, at least not as you once did. There is only a quiet expectation, the knowledge that all the careful whispers, all the soft soled shoes, all the elaborate caution cannot change what must happen. Sometimes, half awake, you imagine the final moment. Will it be silent, or will there be a gasp, a moan, a whispered prayer? Will those around you recognize the instant, or will they only know afterward when the last breath has left and the silence deepens into something absolute? You wonder if you will notice at all. Outside your room, the castle waits. Its old stones, which have witnessed so many arrivals and departures, seem to hold their breath. Every day that you linger is another day for rumors to grow, for ambitions to sharpen, for hope and dread to intertwine. Yet within your chamber, the only movement is the slow shuffle of a servant's feet, the rustle of a robe, the closing of a curtain. Death, you realize, has no need to hurry. It is patient. It waits in the muted footsteps, the held breath, the careful silence. When it finally comes, it will enter quietly, as everyone else does now, and claim its place beside your bed without ceremony or apology. And you, long prepared, will not resist. The long decline reveals many truths, but none so bitter as the reality of friendship in a dying man's chamber. Once your days overflowed with company. Allies crowded your council tables, and friends, so called, vied for your ear, eager to share in your wisdom, your laughter, or more truthfully, your power. Feasts and hunts, tournaments and negotiations, all these moments were crowded with those who called themselves loyal. They were the architecture of your life, the proof of your status. But now, as illness tightens its grip, the parade of well wishers thins to a trickle. Your slow withdrawal from the world is matched by their slow withdrawal from you. The familiar faces, once so quick to answer your summons, become rare and tentative. Some send polite notes, expressing regret for their absence, urgent matters in distant shires, business at court, a wife's sudden illness, a child's christening, the harvest, the weather, the stars themselves conspiring to keep them away. Each excuse, while plausible, is transparent. You know these men. You have written such notes yourself in younger, healthier days. At first, you are hurt. Their absence is a rebuke, a painful reminder that the ties of friendship are as perishable as flesh. You remember the camaraderie of campaigns, the midnight councils, the easy laughter shared after battle. You remember the oaths sworn with the solemnity of men who believed the world might truly end before their bonds were broken. Now, those oaths are as faded as the tapestries in your hall. As time passes, your hurt gives way to resignation, then, quietly, to a certain wry amusement. You wonder if you would have done any different in their place. There is nothing glamorous in watching a once great man whittle himself down to pain and sighs. Loyalty is not what it was in songs or sermons. It, too, sickens and dies, as all things must. The remaining friends, those who come at all, are the ones you did not expect. A distant cousin, half forgotten, appears with clumsy gifts and awkward silences. An old retainer, retired from service and mostly deaf, sits by your bed, nodding at whatever you say, his presence a comfort more honest than the polished words of courtiers. There is the priest, of course, whose duties are professional, but whose company becomes oddly companionable in the long, dull evenings. Most of your former allies, those powerful enough to matter, are now conspicuous by their absence. You hear nothing from the Duke of York, your old companion in arms, not a letter nor a messenger. The Earl of Salisbury, with whom you once planned the future of England, is too busy defending his own future now. The men who once toasted your health with such extravagance, who clapped you on the back and called you brother, now send only their regrets and, occasionally, a cautious inquiry about your estate. Rumors reach you, of course. You are not so isolated that gossip cannot find you. You hear of secret meetings, alliances shifting in the shadows, plots and counterplots forming in the vacuum your illness has created. Some of these stories are almost certainly false, fantasies of bored servants or nervous rivals, but some ring true enough to sting. You wonder sometimes who among your former friends will benefit most from your death, who is already measuring the drapes for your rooms, who is courting your widow with gifts, who is promising to be a better guardian for your children. There is an irony here. In your prime, you understood that power was a matter of proximity, of visibility, of being seen at the right moment by the right people. Now you are invisible, and your power shrinks with each missed visit, each silence. The world of politics is moving on without you, as it must. In your rare moments of candor, you admit to yourself that you are lonely. The ache of isolation is sharper, sometimes, than the ache in your belly. Conversation becomes an effort. Memories, once shared with laughter, now return only as shadows, reminding you of what has been lost, what cannot be reclaimed. You try to find comfort in the presence of family, but even they, busy with their own fears and ambitions, are often at a loss for words. Still, there is a strange freedom in abandonment. You no longer have to perform, to entertain, to reassure. The few who remain expect nothing but your presence, and sometimes not even that. You spend long hours in silence, watching the play of candlelight on the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of the castle, remembering, forgetting, and remembering again. You reflect on the nature of friendship and alliance, on the cost of power and the price of loyalty. In the end, you decide there are no true friends in the world of kings and princes, only temporary fellow travelers, brought together by circumstance, parted by necessity or death. You do not forgive those who have abandoned you, but you do not condemn them either. They are only human, as you are only human, and this is the way of all flesh. And so the days pass, marked by fewer visitors, quieter hours, and the growing certainty that you are, at last, alone. The world outside your door is preparing for the next chapter, the next alliance, the next song of loyalty, sung, as always, for someone else. Night arrives with no ceremony, only a slow dimming of the world as candles gutter and the last muted voices fade down the corridor. You, John of Gaunt, once a figure whose every movement sent ripples through the kingdom, now command only the darkness at the edges of your room and the silence that pools between each breath. The night brings no comfort, it only amplifies your loneliness, and with it, the pain that seems to have become your only remaining companion. It is a pain unlike any you have known, no longer a dull ache to be managed, but a sharp and insistent force that racks your body, leaving you helpless and utterly aware. You have tried every posture, lying curled on your side, arms pressed against your belly, stretching flat, praying for a cool breeze, sitting upright, as if good posture might impress death into granting you a reprieve. Nothing works. The pain pulses, rises, and falls with its own cruel rhythm, impervious to the remnants of medicine that litter your bedside table. The air in your chamber is heavy, close, thick with the mingled scents of old sweat, fading herbs, and wax. The window stands open to the chill, but you feel neither cold nor warmth, just the numbness that signals the slow retreat of the body from the world. In the dimness, the shapes of familiar objects blur and waver. You see faces in the fire, hands in the folds of the curtains, shadows that gather and disperse as if summoned by your thoughts. There are moments when your mind sharpens, and with it, the clarity of despair. You realize how much of you has already slipped away: the hunger for food, the taste of wine, the pleasure of company, the urge to speak. Your voice is a whisper now, a thin thread easily lost in the hush. When the pain becomes unbearable, you try to cry out, but all that emerges is a broken sound, more breath than word. The effort leaves you weaker, sweat prickling on your brow. The world beyond your door feels impossibly distant. You sense that the household is waiting, as if holding its breath for news that is both dreaded and expected. Servants tiptoe past. The chaplain lingers in the antechamber. Your family, those who have not already withdrawn, watch from the edges of the room, careful not to intrude on your suffering. They exchange anxious glances, murmuring prayers or platitudes, their words bouncing off the thick silence and vanishing before they can reach you. You are aware suddenly of time itself stretching and snapping. Minutes become hours. Hours collapse into seconds. You lose track of how long you have been awake, how long you have been waiting for relief, for something, anything, to change. Each heartbeat is a question, each shallow breath a negotiation. In the confusion, memory overtakes you, fleeting visions of childhood, sun on stone, the sound of laughter, your mother's hand on your cheek, drift through your mind, only to be banished by the next wave of pain. Regrets crowd in, things left unsaid, debts unpaid, promises broken, faces long dead come and go, some kind, some accusing, all now beyond your reach. At times, you hear voices, real or imagined. It no longer matters. Sometimes it is the priest, softly urging you toward confession. Sometimes it is the whisper of a friend, promising that it will soon be over. You are no longer sure who is in the room and who is only in your mind. It makes little difference. All are ghosts of a sort. The greatest terror is not death itself, but the possibility that the pain might linger endlessly, pointlessly, long after hope has gone. You are past wishing for a miracle. Now you wish only for release. You pray, though you are not certain for whom or to whom. You pray for the pain to stop, for the night to end, for something final and irrevocable to break the pattern of suffering. There's a moment as dawn approaches when you become aware of your own weakness, absolute, inescapable, complete. You cannot lift your hand, cannot turn your head. You listen to your breath rattling in your throat and wonder if it will be your last. You are afraid, yes, but the fear is less than the exhaustion, less than the ache that has replaced every other sensation. This, then, is the final hour, not a grand speech, not a valiant struggle, but a slow, stumbling descent into oblivion, marked only by pain and a desperate longing for an end. The world contracts to a single point: your body, your suffering, the darkness beyond the edge of the bed. When it is over, it will be a mercy. But for now, there is only pain and the hope that it, too, will soon run its course. The night lengthens into something eternal. The pain does not ebb, but the edges grow blurry. Sensation dulls, like a candle guttering before it is finally snuffed out. Your breathing slows, becomes a thin, uneven thread, each inhale a labor, each exhale a question. You are still, but the world around you seems to be in motion, shadows shifting, shapes dissolving, voices dim and indistinct, as if the room itself is sliding away from you. No thunderclap marks your passing, no chorus of angels or shuddering tremor of the earth. Instead, the moment arrives as so many things do at the end, quietly, almost unnoticed. The pain, which has been your only true companion for so long, releases you at last, not with drama, but with an almost impersonal finality. There is a pause, a blankness, as if even the suffering is surprised by its own disappearance. The last sensations are not those of revelation or peace, but of absence. Cold creeps into your limbs, seeping up from your fingers and toes, and you find yourself unable to summon even the will to shiver. The world grows lighter, then darker, then lighter again, a stuttering interplay of torchlight, candle flame, and dawn that barely registers. You are aware, dimly, of voices, of the faint pressure of a hand on your own, of a wordless murmur at the edge of hearing. It might be a prayer, or a farewell, or nothing at all. For a moment, you imagine rising out of yourself, out of the ruined, pain-ridden body, out of the suffocating air and the anxious faces hovering at your bedside. You look down and see only a heap of blankets, a few trembling figures, and the terrible emptiness that now fills the space where John of Gaunt once lived. The world carries on, as it always does, indifferent to this final subtraction. The wind brushes the window. The servants move about with careful steps. The castle, which has outlasted 100 such endings, holds its silence. There is no vision, no great secret revealed, no parade of memories to comfort or condemn. Only a deep, abiding emptiness, an absence that is both a relief and a sorrow. This is not a heroic ending, nor is it even especially tragic. It is simply what comes next, the body letting go, the world letting go, everything becoming still. You are not aware of the moment when your heart gives its last weak flutter, when your breath rattles out and does not return. Others notice, eventually, a change in the color of your skin, a slackness in your jaw, the uncanny quiet that settles over the chamber. The physician will check for a pulse. The priest will murmur the last rites, and your family, if they are present, will cry or simply look away. The end, when it comes, is not grand, but it is absolute. For those left behind, the room feels larger, emptier. The cold deepens, filling the corners, pooling on the floor, stretching into the spaces where your presence once pressed against the world. No one rushes to open the window. No one hastens to close your eyes. Everything happens at its own unhurried pace, as if the castle itself needs a moment to accept the new vacancy. Some will remember you as strong, some as stern, some as broken by your final months. Most, truthfully, will not remember you at all, except as a name in the records, a date on the calendar, a body that had to be carried down the stairs and laid to rest with all the proper ceremonies. The world shrugs and moves on, already turning its gaze to the next crisis, the next banquet, the next inevitable death. There is, in the end, only cold and emptiness, a hush that seeps into every stone, every silence, every uncertain glance in the days that follow. And perhaps that is fitting in its way. All the pain, all the plotting, all the desperate clinging to life has led here, to a moment of nothing, to the fading echo of a breath, to the stillness that cannot be broken. Whatever comes after, if anything comes at all, begins in this void, this vast and peaceful blank. You are gone, and with you, the last warmth of the room. In the end, it is neither reward nor punishment. It is simply what happens to everyone, sooner or later. You have become, at last, a memory, and soon even that will fade. Death for you is not an ending, but a point of transition. One more stone thrown into the pond of history, sending ripples out into a world that has little patience for mourning and even less for reflection. As the news of your passing filters through the castle, the city, and the countryside beyond, the machinery of life grinds briefly, awkwardly, then resumes its usual pace. Mourning is a ritual, a public performance, black cloth draped over doorways, processions organized, prayers recited with more form than feeling. Your family and household, released from the peculiar gravity of your decline, scatter like birds at the lifting of a storm. Some weep, some sigh, Some merely look at one another and wonder, quietly, what will become of them now that the man whose name bound them together has become little more than a story. The stewards move quickly, locking strong boxes, checking ledgers, dispatching messengers to distant manors. Your children quarrel over inheritance, even before your body has cooled, while your widow negotiates the delicate politics of her new and ambiguous freedom. The doctors linger only long enough to write their opinions for the record. What killed you? Some say it was the stubborn fever. Others blame the swelling in your belly. Others hint darkly at a poison or a curse, though none will say it aloud in front of the priest. The churchmen, for their part, insist on the mystery of God's will and assure your heirs that all suffering has meaning, even if no one can say what that meaning is. Each authority claims the final word, and none are believed. Outside the castle walls, your death becomes one more entry in the city's endless litany of misfortune. For a week or two, the taverns are thick with speculation. The more dramatic versions circulate quickly. Some claim you died in agony for your sins, others that your ghost haunts the halls, seeking vengeance on those who betrayed you. There are tales of a weeping widow, of secret heirs, of strange portents in the sky. But soon, even these rumors grow stale, overtaken by fresher news. A fire in the marketplace, a brawl among apprentices, a traveling charlatan who promises protection from whatever disease killed the Duke. Your body is prepared for burial in the old ways, anointed with oils, swaddled in costly cloth, displayed for a time, so that the world may see the final evidence of your passing. The ceremony is both grand and perfunctory, attended by those who must be seen attending, watched by a public who understand that the death of a lord is mostly an excuse for disruption. The bell rings out over the rooftops, but by the time its echoes have faded, most have already returned to their own affairs. The castle itself, so long shaped by your routines, adjusts with surprising speed. New voices fill the corridors. The household charts a new order. Retainers are dismissed or promoted. The cooks experiment with new menus, and the dogs, sensitive to absence, whine at doors that will never open again. The window of your chamber is thrown wide to let the soul depart, as tradition demands, and the chill that fills the room is not just the night's air, but the arrival of uncertainty. Your absence does not stop the march of disease. If anything, it is a reminder that no door, however sturdy, and no purse, however fat, can keep out the things that truly matter. The sickness that stalks the streets, the fear that turns neighbors into strangers, the old slow hunger that never fully leaves. As your household buries you, others in the city are already falling ill, their coughs muffled by the same hope and denial that shielded your own decline. The doctors shake their heads, the priests offer blessings, but no one expects much improvement. Fear lingers. Every ache is suspect, every cough a warning. The rumor that your illness was contagious is not spoken openly, but it lingers in the gestures of servants who scrub your chamber, in the reluctance of visitors to touch the door you passed through, in the eyes of the new master who takes your place at the high table and finds the air just a little colder. Some hope that, with your death, the curse is lifted. Others are certain it has only begun. In the months that follow, life continues with its usual mixture of struggle and ceremony. Your name is invoked, sometimes as a warning, sometimes as an example, more often simply as a placeholder for all the things that power cannot protect against. Your family learns to live with your absence, to fight new battles, to nurse new ambitions. The castle endures, and so does the world's appetite for suffering and stories. And as always, disease waits for no man. The next wave comes soon enough, another fever, another winter of coughing and shivering, another round of bell tolls. What was once your private agony becomes, in the end, nothing more than the background noise of an age that measures its years in funerals and rumors. History will record your passing, if only because the record keepers love a list. But the pain, the fear, and the hush of your final days will not be remembered. They will simply join the great, invisible ledger of all those who died, not with glory, but with silence and dread, in a world that always seems to be waiting for the next, and the next, and the next death. And so, after you, the castle will sleep uneasily, and the bell will ring again.